Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am joined by not one, but two co-hosts. Joining me today is, of course, Christy. Christy, how are we today?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
I am doing all right. Excited to talk about this. We have so much new ship news in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It was a decade without anything about ships. And now it's every other week we're talking about the Treasure or the Destiny. And now this week we were talking about the Adventure. And also joining us for this discussion is Steve.
Hey
Steve,
guys,
how are we today?
Good to see you guys. I feel like I just saw you guys.
It was just a couple of days ago.
It was just a couple days ago, so good dinner.
Yes, we all were just recently together enjoying a lovely meal at Topolino's.
Or as Katie and I said, AKA, it had very cruise ship vibes up there. It's the first time I've been there. That was a really cool space.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. The sunset, we had a good sunset.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome evening all around.
You can see that sunset. What is your Instagram, Steve? DCL_adventures, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you posted.
Lake did too under Mouse Gen, so look up there too. So
it was gorgeous. It was a really fun night. I was happy to do it again.
So anyways, it was a great night. So thank you so much for including me. That was a lot of fun.
In fact, it was. And you're welcome. And I'm glad that you really put together the night by making a layover.
Well, we are live for our Patreon members, and then this show will go out as our regular slated show this week. But we have some exciting news, more details about the Disney Adventure. So we thought we would all come on, join you live, and give you all the details about one of Disney's other new ships coming out.
Probably the most obscure one that I think a lot of people, or most DCL fans, it's going to be hard for them to get to and probably go on this. This is going to be sailing out of Singapore, but I'm excited for it because they're adding a lot of different things to it, and we're going to dive into a bunch of them, I guess.
Yeah, this is such an interesting hodgepodge of old and new. We're seeing elements of basically every ship style kind of thrown into this, plus its own unique flair, being that this is a very different layout. And some of these choices, I think, definitely show that it's working arothis layout.
Yeah,
Christy,
for sure.
Do you want to get us started with the voyage dates and the booking dates?
Yes. So this ship, and let me just say, they are doing 3 and 4 night sailings out of Singapore. Disney, a press release or two ago, basically indicated that these are cruises to nowhere. And the point of the cruise is to see the ship. And the ship looks amazing. So I feel like it's like the Oasis type class ships meet Disney Cruise Line. Just, giant ship with the Disney Cruise Line element. So the maiden voyage is going to be December 15th, 2025. Of course, Disney indicated a while back that this would be released in 2025, and they're just under the wire with it. And at least they are not doing like the Treasure and releasing it the week of the holidays. So I appreciate this opening date a little bit better. Bookings. So Disney indicated that we will be able to see the itineraries in late November or mid-November, and that bookings will be open December 10th, 2024. And the one thing I'll say about that is when they did the Australian cruises, they did them on Australian time, like their local time. So I'll be curious what time they'll be released on December 10th, but that is when bookings will begin. I'm also curious how it will be booking from the US, because these are obvious. This ship is geared as a local ship. Bring them out to see it. There'll be elements we'll discuss that are like the cabins that are in some way for that market more than what people in the US are typically used to. And so it'll be interesting if it'll be difficult even to book it. But nothing has said we can't. All of that will be interesting.
Well, you can book the Australian sailings right through the website or through Disney. So I would assume that you'd probably still be able to do the same thing.
Yeah. And I have clients, like you don't have to be a US citizen or resident rather to even book with a US travel agent. I have clients that live in the Netherlands that I book regularly, and I actually have clients in Australia that booked and one of the Magic at Sea Australian sailings that use me as their travel agent. So you don't have to be a US resident to use us or Canadian as your travel agent, but just some of these things are new, right? Like, are they only going to put it on that system? I don't know. Probably not, because they're telling us about it.
Right.
So anyway, let's get into it. There's so much.
Yes, we do have quite a bit to get in here. I'm going to go ahead and start us off and talk about the Marvel landing details. So Marvel landing, obviously Marvel themed on the top deck. But what is interesting about this, and I did not see this coming, is that they are essentially adding, I'm going to call it more off the shelf style attractions onto the top deck of this. Of course, they are featuring what they are now touting as the longest roller coaster at sea. I believe Carnival's Mardi Gras was the previous holder of that record, or one of the Mardi Gras sister ships. Either way, Disney is gunning for that spot and will feature a roller coaster on sea. You can look at the concept images. It's almost kind of like Tron style, but not quite as prohibited. It's like sitting on a motorcycle, but you're not doing that lean thing.
Right. And your legs aren't like locked behind you, at least according to their concept art.
Yep. And then you also are going to have the PIM Quantum Racers, which literally looks to be little go-karts of the style.
Yep.
This is probably like Pee-wee go-kart style. And then you also have Groot Galaxy Spin, which is kind of your off-the-shelf Dumbo style ride, all packed in this little Marvel neighborhood, which is pretty interesting.
I mean, like, you can see but in front of at least the picture that they've released, the concept art, but there's like the switchbacks to get in the spinner ride. It's wild. And if you look at this room, if you look at this concept art as well, and I'm trying to be visual for the people listening, it is very much like the Oasis class ships for Royal Caribbean, with the cutout in the middle of Central Park, where you have this like internal neighborhood. And even on this ship, they're referring to them as neighborhoods, but you can see it where you look down into this, internal neighborhood that's there, which I think they will talk about, but they refer to as like a garden something.
Yeah.
So, go on.
Go ahead. I think it's a cool space. I will be curious to see if this will be an upcharge for people to do each one of these. Yeah, the roller coaster looks cool, very similar to Carnival's. And like, I don't know, on the Bliss, if you guys did the racers on the Bliss during your Alaska cruise, but I'm sure it'll be kind of electric cars like that for the car ride there on it as well. So that was actually super fun. It was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, funny enough, we didn't do it because
you didn't do it.
Yeah, when you're in Alaska, it's like very limited the times it's open.
Yeah, that is true. We got it in on one of our sea days, and it was booked solid for most of the trip. You had to book ahead to be able to get on it. So probably I would assume that they'd probably do something similar to that with some of these rides, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure, especially the roller coaster may have some sort of pre-book pass, but I really don't know because this is all very new to us and very new to Disney Cruise Line as well. Well, why don't we move into entertainment? Do either one of you want to talk about the new variety of shows?
I could touch on it a little bit, I guess. The main shows that I saw was they're bringing back Seize the Adventure, and I just looked at the press, whenever the presser that you sent over, Christy, and as new and different as the ship is, they've got a lot. As we kind of go through it, you'll see that there's a lot of similarities to they will have on the ship that are on the rest of the ship. So they're going to have Seize the Adventure, which will debut the first night, and then they're going to do their own show, which is called, I believe, Remember, which is going to feature Wally and Eve, which I think that's kind of cool to bring them into those are characters that just don't get as much attention, and I think that's pretty cool that they're going to have their own show on the adventure. Besides that, then they also talked about it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong if you guys know, it seems like the sail away party is actually going to be inside in that kind of garden space area because they don't have like a big stage necessarily outside. So from what I read, it was they were going to have the sail away, seemed like the sail away party would be in there, and it would also feature a Marvel, kind of like the Marvel Day at Sea stage show as well in there. I think they said they've got 3 different stages in that garden area. So a lot of different ways to be able to use that and put on different productions. And there was also mention of a pirate stage show as well. So I'm not sure if that's going to be incorporated with any type of fireworks or not, but it seemed to me that most of those stage shows are going to be inside in that garden area.
And I believe, too, there's also a Moana show
Okay, I missed that
that
one.
is featuring on some sort of what they're calling the open air oasis. And there's a Moana Call of the Seas. Looks to be kind of their take on some sort of
Aqua
water show. Yeah, aqua show style. Again, going back to Oasis class ships that do something very similar. And we do also, they announced there's a color spin Mickey dance party as well. Not really a ton of details on that. But yes, there's the Captain Jack and the Siren Queen. And as we said before, Avengers Assemble and Let's Set Sail, or some sort of like deck show style show as opposed to the Broadway style.
Yeah, and then on top of that, then like they've a lot of different adult entertainment spaces where it looks like they could have live music around the ship as well for adults. So a lot of things going on in the ship, from what's going on up on the top deck to all the different shows that you're going to be able to fit in your 3 and 4 day cruise.
Yeah, there's so much.
Oh yeah, I mean, just here we have so much to talk about, and we probably won't be able to hit every single detail, but we will certainly try our best here. But why don't we go ahead and we want to talk about dining?
Yeah, so it looks like, and maybe you guys can speak to this better than I can, that so you're going to have 3 and 4 night cruises. So there's basically 3 nights of rotational dining, right? And then are they going to do pirate night or whatever for the 4th night, however that's going to be. But there's 6 basically restaurants. And so it looks that you will rotate through, I don't know what the right word would be, but through the 6 different restaurants.
Kind of the way I got it, looking at it, is there's 6 different restaurants like you're saying, but
there's like 3 themes.
Yeah, they're kind of paired and they're kind of similar. So if you end up with one, it may be a little bit different space, but like the slide that you got up there, like right now, that is which one is that?
That should be the Hollywood Spotlight Club.
Yeah, so you get the Hollywood Spotlight Club along with the Navigators Club, and they're very similar as far as like kind of the a little bit different theming, but basically the idea of the characters coming out while you're having dinner and being able to meet them and whatever added touches. So it seems like even though there's 6, they're kind of paired similar.
Yep. So we have, as Steve said, Navigators and Hollywood Spotlight Club. They're definitely paired up. And what I would guess is they really just had to take these spaces that were already built on the ship and say, how do we incorporate this into rotational dining? Because it looks like from the concept art, Navigators and Hollywood Spotlight are basically your facing dining rooms from the concept pictures. So they're probably one above the other. They do have a different design and different theme, which is kind of cool, but probably a very similar layout to the restaurant.
It could also be divided where like 1923 has a Roy and a Walt. This could basically be in the same space as Hollywood Spotlight, adjacent to a Navigators Club. So they don't necessarily have to be up and down from each other. They could be next to each other.
Yeah, and that's pretty common on a lot of different cruise ships where, especially main dining rooms, you could be going through a hallway and you have left and right, and they'll have 2 different names, like the Bliss had it, where they had Taste and Savor, exact same restaurant, exact same menu. It was literally just, what side of the ship do you want to dine on tonight, was the major difference. And then Animator's Palette is making a return to this ship, as well as what I'm going to call it sister restaurant Animator's Table. Again, should be very, very similar. They basically used very different, like slightly different flavor text to describe them, but they're going to both be very similar. Animator's Palette that you kind of remember. I think almost more classic ship was the vibe that I got from it.
That's what I was just about to say, was like they're bringing back the old school kind of Animator's Palette, and I love it, with just kind of updated spaces for the tables and everything else. I'm a fan. Yep.
And then our last pair of restaurants are basically what they're calling the Enchanted Summer restaurants. You have a Frozen side and a Tangled side to this. And they are basically both, I believe the Frozen side is like Olaf's Summer Retreat or something like that. And the other one is Tangled's Summer something of another. But yeah, they're both, again, probably going to be similar like layout of restaurant. They did look to see like they may have some different menus, though, inspired by the theme of the restaurant, because they did specifically mention bringing the frying pan back for the Tangled restaurant. And then they did say, though, it is still going to be standard rotational style dining that you've come to know and love from Disney, and that you will essentially be pre-assigned to those restaurants, and those are the restaurants you're going to be going to. So it will probably not be pick and choose. I want to go to, this side this night and that side, because your servers are still following you and they're going to have a set rotation as well.
which makes it more convenient, frankly.
And then we did get a ton of other dining reveals as well. We can kind of quickly hit on some of these. I don't have every single detail. The Pixar market, I believe, is the buffet style that we're going to be seeing. And then we got a ton of different quick service style restaurants, essentially, you know, and these I believe also are encompassing kind of your deck food. So there is, I believe it's Stitches Ohana, which is basically your American bar and grill type of food. Kind of an interesting theme for that style, but that's okay. Do you guys remember what some of the other ones were? I don't have all of them in front of me.
There's Bewitching Boba and Brews. There is Cosmic Kebabs. I don't know how to say this word. Mowgli's?
From the Jungle Book.
Oh, yeah. Eatery.
Yep.
And then Grandma Tala's Kitchen. And then Palo Cafe.
So Mowgli's is going to be Indian, Grandma Tala's is going to be Pacific and Asian. So I like the idea that there's some other different options. So if you don't want to do the rotational dining and you want to, or if you want to get something for lunch that's a little bit different than a buffet, which I'm sure they'll have a lot of different flavors in the buffet, but there are some different options for you to eat at on the ship as well.
Yeah. And you said if we don't want to do rotational, we don't really know that these restaurants will be open in the evening. We don't actually know the details of that. So
yeah, definitely a ton of different options and the opportunity, just like any ship, to have like the best opportunity for food on the ship. Like all of these different options are great. A boba place on a Disney Cruise Line ship, like sign me up.
And then when you go to the premium, I don't know if you're going to touch on that next, like,
yeah, go for it.
They've got Mike and Sully's, which I would totally be stoked with that. It's like 4 district dining options. It gives you either Japanese steakhouse, a teppanyaki room, which if you've ever done that, we did that on Norwegian several times, and that's a lot of fun. That's where they actually cook the fish or the chicken and the vegetables all up in front of you with noodles and whatnot. And there's an omakase style dining, and then an outdoor sushi sashimi restaurant as well. So kind of leaning in on all those kind of Asian Pacific flavors. And then of course they've also do have the classic Palo Trattorias coming back.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Mike and Sully's, I mean, interesting theme for the Asian restaurant. I get that they eat at the nice Asian restaurant in the movie, but it's not even named after that. I digress. But what's interesting, and another concept that we see on more mass market cruises is where the restaurants, especially the higher end restaurants, will also have like smaller mini venues as well. Because the Mike and Sully's has 3 different styles of dining. Because they have the teppanyaki, they're offering some sort of sit down Tokyo style dining, and then they're also offering a sushi bar.
Right.
So you're seeing a whole big variety of restaurant options out of that one. And then what's interesting too is Palo is doing kind of the same thing, because we have a Palo cafe. I believe there's a Palo like lounge or bar, and then of course you have what I would say is a little bit more traditional Palo. And then the Palo is also all themed around Luca, which was interesting. I mean, that is an Italian-inspired movie, and I'm here for it. I love Luca. If Nova was here, she would be going crazy about the Luca theme. But yeah, very interesting choices there, and definitely a very different style to what I think we'll be used to for that kind of signature dining that we see on Disney Cruise Line.
Yeah, they are all in on the IP on this ship. It is just like one massive IP, but of course that's the point, and that's the point of doing the ship of the locals type cruise to nowhere, is just to experience the ship.
And I like the fact that they're really leaning in and not just sticking with they're sticking with the traditional rotational dining and everything like that for Disney Cruise Line, but they're added so many different flavors, so many different things that you can experience and go and see. They've got the space for it. I'm glad they're taking advantage of it to give people a whole bunch of different options for what they want to do and experience with their families or whoever they're traveling with.
Well, why don't we go ahead and stick with the adult experiences here? We do have a couple lounges that we can talk about as well. We have some new ones, some returning ones, some that are kind of twists on what we know are either coming or have come. So we do have Spellbound, which is going to be a villains themed lounge, which I think is probably the one people I would say would be most excited for that was revealed.
I mean, other people.
Not Christy, apparently.
I like the name of it.
It's got kind of it's a weird vibe to it, though. I think like it feels like you're under the sea, sort of.
Yeah.
with like the seaweed coming out of the ceiling and everything like that. But very, I don't know, it feels very Tokyo.
They're really into that glowy villains theme.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
is a whole bunch of artwork. There is a bunch of pin sets and art that are based around, especially in the background, you can see the Ursula in that like neon glow. And then they had literally a whole, like the yearly annual pin event was themed around this style of restaurant. So they're like really all in on this theme. I don't know if they're just trying to like maximize that art style for whatever reason.
They paid for it. They're getting the good use out of it.
It is cool though.
Yeah. But I actually don't know that this is that Spellbound unless
I'm not sure either. There wasn't a concept art. This, I believe, is the boba place.
Yes.
But it kind of gives you that same vibe. So that's what I went with. For those that are listening, I do have the slideshow showing in the video. So if you see the picture that was tied with the boba place, it's kind of giving off those same vibes.
Okay.
But then we do have Buccaneer Bar, which should be kind of your standard keg and compass style. We are seeing a very similar concept to this coming out on the Treasure here in just a few months. So I imagine we're going to see kind of some recycled elements from that. We have Taverna Porto Rosso, which I believe is just like an Italian style like cafe. And then we are seeing Tiana's Bayou return, and they literally just used the Wish concept for this. Like, it was very clearly the same setup as the Wish. So I think this will be as copy and paste as the layout will allow.
But it's so pretty.
It is a very pretty
I don't have
lounge.
a problem with that. Then there's a bar also called Market Bar.
Sorry.
Market Bar.
Maybe that's like a lobby bar.
It might be probably something like that, or someplace close to
Or it may just be like one that's in like the, like the buffet style.
Yeah, that could make sense. The Pixar Market Restaurant.
They also have
surprise me. Go ahead, Steve.
They also have Palo Cafe is going to be an option as well. And then they have this is where Nova and Christy will be most of the cruise at the Taverna Porto Rosso, which is going to feature kind of a sports bar, Italian theme with a little red Vespa scooter in there to kind of.
It's a sports bar?
Yeah, it's a sports bar. So there's
that's right. It's a weird.
Well, because Steve, we already talked about that bar, but also it's fine that we're coming back to it. But I missed that it was a sports bar and didn't get that from the name at all.
Yeah, it's going to feel like you're stepped into a rustic neighborhood bar on the coast of Italy, so you can watch your favorite football team play. Football is in soccer, not the American version of it.
I forgot I read that earlier and was like, this is like such unhinged theming. Like, I don't understand. Like, some things were just like they walked into a room and just like pulled something out of a hat, and they're like, all right, let's see here, we've got Luca and sports bar.
I'm here for it though, because I think it's kind of cool that they're doing something different rather than just like a British pub or something like that. So I'm kind of digging like that they're mixing things up a little bit.
I agree. I mean, I'm all here for this unhinged theming. I just think it's funny that there are definitely like things pulled out of the hat that I would have never guessed, which again is cool.
Sort of like Mike and Sully with the
yes.
Yeah.
Mike and Sully and teppanyaki. Well, do we want to talk about the staterooms? I think we have quite a bit to hit on this.
Yes.
So they did release many concepts for the staterooms. I am not going to go through every single one and every single picture, but we will kind of briefly talk about if you thought DCL cabin organization and cabin categories were confusing before. I'm pretty sure this is gonna be like trying to solve the Matrix.
Yeah. And so listeners can go to a Facebook page. I'm assuming they're on other social media, called Cruise Beyond SG for Singapore, I believe. They have every basically stateroom type with the concept picture and the name, at least a name. And so I would recommend going through there to see the different concept art if that was something that you're interested in seeing a little bit more close-up picture of.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about some of these concepts. Of course, there is concierge. I'm not even sure if I put a picture of some of the concierge. They look lovely and grand.
Yeah, and I just want to briefly touch upon concierge. This ship, when it was originally built, and they show some of it now, had like a separate suite section, like some of the cruise lines are doing. And with that is going to come a separate lounge, separate deck space, like a big, large outside deck space like some of the other cruise lines are doing. And so it's definitely going to be an elevated concierge experience, different than than what we have here.
Yeah, I totally forgot looking at that concept image. They basically have a very large deck portion. I mean, this envelops, again, talking about mass market cruising, the ship within a ship concept. They've got private pool decks, like nice looking, expansive private pool decks. Tons and tons of different suite concepts that admittedly all look great. So this definitely has the possibility to be some of your best concierge experiences as for amenities available on board Disney Cruise Line.
Yeah, totally. They've got spa suites as well. So they have a separate spa just for the concierge guests. And they have their own fitness. They have some of their own shopping, high-end shopping. And I think you said there's dining, right, Christy? Or there was at least, I think there was like some kind of dining option as well for the guests.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure about that. And I apologize, but
no, it's okay. I'll look it up as we're kind of going along. But the other thing that I wanted to point out too was it's kind of cool because what concierge right now is limited basically to balconies, but this is going to have ocean view and also inside. So there's going to be a lot more stateroom options as well for concierge.
And while they look that up, I'm going to talk about some of the general staterooms here. We are going to see, just like in Oasis class ships, you're going to have the balconies that look into the ship, as well as your standard ocean view verandas, I should say, not balconies. And both of the concepts from the deluxe style rooms will look very familiar to what we kind of know and love out of a Disney Cruise Line stateroom. They also mentioned that they are bringing split bathrooms back, which is pretty interesting. I wonder if they had to do a lot of retrofitting there to try to make that happen, because these rooms were definitely all made to be much smaller, and we will see some much smaller rooms here in just a second. But they made a pretty big deal about announcing, yes, we are going to be keeping the split bathroom design. So again, these deluxe families here that we can see with these verandas follow very similar to what we know and love out of a Disney Cruise Line room, I think. Christy, you look like you have something to say.
Except that I'm not 100% sure, based upon the other pictures, whether or not, like, how many of these sleep, like the regular room that we're used to seeing versus these like bunk style rooms, because I don't actually know from the concept picture if that couch bed is big enough to be an actual bed. So is it just for a room of two? So this is something we'll have to wait, I think, until more information is out.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a question that will be answered once we kind of see more of deck plans. Probably one of the big keys we are missing right here. We can't see like where rooms are located and again, what categories these rooms are, but it definitely does. The couch looks smaller than usual. Like, it doesn't look like you are pulling a bed out of that or flipping it down into that DCL style. But this is also concept image, so we could very well just be wrong.
Right. And maybe it's for a small child. I don't know. But what we do know is there are these single beds, and they call those rooms like the staterooms for up to 4, basically. So it's literally twin styled. Like, think of if anybody cruised back in the olden days. I know our first cruise, this is how it was. It was 2 twins at the bottom and twins at the top. And actually, a lot of princesses' ships still look like this, where there's like,
Yeah, so
Okay,
Norwegian still has some rooms like this, because my sisters had booked a room like this, not realizing what it was going to be. But these are the rooms that when people tell you about small staterooms on cruise ships, that they are imagining. And this is definitely how that at least original 6,000 person occupancy was going to be reached. Right. We'll see. They haven't really said anything about changing that occupancy or if it's going to be changed. But there are.
That was in something. We talked about it because they gave us the ship ton size and the occupancy in a previous press release.
I have missed that, or I probably talked about it and completely forgot. Yeah, but what you can notice from the concept images here is they did a good job picturing kind of what each half of the room looks like when it's turned down or, put away. You can see where the bed comes down, featuring the concept art. We can see they do have concepts for inside as well as ocean view rooms. And one thing that I definitely miss is that big dreamy porthole style. They've got some more kind of just standard looking windows for the regular ocean views, which is slightly less appealing to me. Doesn't mean that they may not have some of those in a bigger size room, I would guess.
Or the edges, right? Because those dreamy porthole windows are typically because it looks nice for Disney Cruise Line because they like the style. So they're usually like the front or the back of the ship.
Yep. And then these little 4-person rooms do also have a veranda option as well. So it looks like you will have a couple deck styles to pick from to get these.
And that garden view. There's a garden view room. I feel like I'm calling it the wrong name, but it's basically that internal area where those roller coasters, that Marvel area is at the top that you can see down, we believe, at least from the concept art. And that's where it's this, I guess it's like an internal balcony. So you can see the middle of the ship.
That may be worth talking about. I've never sailed on one of those ships, but I mean, people either love, but I've also heard a lot of negative things about booking some of those inside ones that look inside, mainly because they've got the bar areas and whatnot on royal ships, so they can be kind of loud at night. I'm not sure what Disney's going to have. Obviously, they'll have some of the shows going on in there, but maybe you could talk about that, Christy, or like if you've sailed in one of those ones that look inside.
Yeah, so I haven't stayed in one of those cabins, but I've seen them and I am familiar. And some of the issues are like on the Royal Caribbean ship where they have the Central Park is in the middle. That's like this garden section that Disney is referring to. It doesn't get a lot of airflow all the time in there. So it could just be quite hot. And it could also have a lot of elements coming in, because there's nothing covering it. So it's just sort of open. So those are things, but it's usually gorgeous. And from the concept art, this space looks gorgeous as well. And from some of the pictures, where they're talking about the shows, it sounds like the shows will be in some of those shows will be in that garden. So it seems like you will get a very good view of entertainment. Just like on Royal Caribbean, they have in the boardwalk area on the Oasis class ships, you get to see the aqua show from certain angles or certain suites. You also will always hear it, even if you can't quite see what they're doing. So those are always just things to keep in mind, is that you will get a lot of that entertainment in your cabin when it's occurring. But usually they're less expensive, and yet they still give you airflow and outside viewing and seating and stuff like that.
We kind of jumped all over a little bit with the accommodations and stuff like the staterooms. But for those of you who are seeing some of these pictures with us, just kind of think of it this way. They basically have the same type of rooms. You've got a veranda, you've got an ocean view, or you've got inside staterooms. And what's cool about it is they have the deluxe rooms, which are kind of basically what we're used to at Disney Cruise Line right now, with the large queen size bed, it looks like, and then possibly other beds for kids. But then if you've got some if you want to go for the value accommodations, they have just regular ocean view, regular inside rooms, and those are the ones with the twin beds. And I think it's cool that they're doing that, because the three of us could go together on a cruise and get a stateroom like that that's cheap. We're not going to be in the staterooms for very much for 3 or 4 days. You're going to be out experiencing the ship and everything like that. So why spend all the money in a stateroom if we're not really going to be there?
Sounds like a podcast event.
I'm just saying, yeah, it gives people more options, I think. It gives you like a little bit cheaper options probably to be able to get on the ship to experience it, but then also gives you different options for people that maybe you're traveling together that a little bit, maybe you're not traveling together with families, but you're traveling with friends, and it's just a way to experience the ship and save a little bit of money.
Right, and have a separate space to sleep. It doesn't look like, by the way, we were going to circle back to this, that there is a concierge restaurant, just the spaces and the shops and the stuff that we discussed earlier. And with rotational dining, it's hard to know whether that would make sense, but there is still, it looks like, a lounge with the warm options like they have on the Wish, or heavier items, I guess, like they would have there.
I think that's what I saw was the concierge lounge. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We want you off the show.
I'm going to circle it back around and just kind of touch on some of the little things we missed. They gave us some more details of the San Francisco Street, one of the districts within the ship. There is going to be a Big Hero themed arcade, which I think is a pretty cool. I mean, there's usually arcades on ships, but it sounds like this might be a little bit more plussed up. And then included with that is the Hero Training Zone, which, if you've ever seen those videos of the people like running and jumping on light floors, this is the way it was described. And there's like basically you have to dodge different bars on the floor. And this is like an activity that you and your family can sign up for and go and do, which I think sounds like a pretty cool inclusion for a cruise ship.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything else you want on?
Kids clubs are basically the same. They've got, the Oceaneers Club and keep saying Oceaneers Club and kind of lab that's split up into a bunch of different things. There's like the Marvel Web Workshop, Andy's Toy Box, Fairy Tale Hall, Walt Disney Imagineering Labs. So kind of some of the same things that you've seen on the Wish and hopefully the Treasure coming. And then between 11 and 14, they've got a space for the Edge. And then the Vibe is 14 to 17 as well, along with a nursery on board. And then some kind of, I was trying to figure out what this was. There's Mickey and Minnie's Captain's Deck. Do they have that on the Wish or anything like that? So is that for like the smaller kids?
So what I thought was kind of cool about this was that is kind of what took the place of Andy's Toy Box on the original 4 ships. Was it was replaced with that captain deck, and it was either like one age or the other. But it looks like on this ship they were able to include both of these play areas, so there's a designated play area for the younger ones like at all times.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah, so kind of the same kids clubs for family as well on board.
And it looks like there's still all, we talked about that Marvel area on the top deck, but there's also family pools and tiered lounge deck floors. And then there's the Toy Story splash pad like they have on the Wish. So, and plus it's not the Dino District, but it sounds like there's a different slide system.
That's all within that Toy Story district. Like that Toy Story district is all kind of the family pool area, family fun, water slides, splash pads, that sort of thing.
Yep. So there's just a lot.
There is a ton, because even looking through, there are like little things we miss. But, if we tried to hit every single detail, we would be here for days.
And bore people. So I feel like when you and I did the show about the Destiny, we were like, oh, that's fine. And then we're doing this show about the adventure and we're like, this is so cool. And the reality is, I do think that this is so cool, that this ship sounds amazing. I would like them to just pick it up and put it here out of Port Canaveral for a little bit so that I can experience it without a 20-hour flight. But I don't think that's going to be possible, but maybe it's going to be one of the future ships. Maybe, or some like giant ship concept like it, but I don't know, because remember, this was like a purchase of a ship that was already being built, and I don't know that they're going to go and do this some more. What do you think, Steve?
Well, they get the next ships that are coming after the Destiny, and from what we've seen, it looks like they're going to be a little bit bigger than the Destiny, the Treasure, and the Wish. And so I could see them using some of these, testing out some different concepts like that garden area and whatnot, and maybe incorporating that into the next generation of Disney Cruise Line ships coming. So I doubt that I doubt that we're going to see this anytime in Port Canaveral, if ever. Never say never, but I can see a lot of the concepts from this being incorporated into the next generation of ships, which I'm excited about, especially for the different food options that they could be bringing to Disney Cruise Line.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely a lot of, we'll see some test concepts here that we may eventually see on our next batch of ships, but I don't think Disney subscribes to the bigger is better concept. I think they like to grow the ships just a little bit every time to give them a little bit more space to figure out what they want to do. But I would be doubtful that they say that this ship ever gets any sort of sister ships.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think it's cool to have a ship over here because there's like so many different spaces to go over there. I mean, between Hong Kong Disneyland, Tokyo Disneyland, then obviously Shanghai. You could really make quite a trip of it to go over there and add this. And plus, Singapore is just an amazing city in and of itself. So spend a couple of days in Singapore, sail, and then hit whichever one of the parks you want to hit while you're over there.
Just to give you an idea on the size, this ship is going to be, it looks like 208,000 gross tons. The Disney Fantasy is 130,000. The Wish is under 145,000. And the Wonder is 84,000 tons in the Magic. So this ship is like 1.25 or 2.25 of the Disney Wonder. That's insane.
I think it's pretty cool. So
yeah. And let's just look up the Utopia of the Seas size, because so that's the Oasis size live radio here, right?
Yeah.
And it's not working. Hold on.
Disney doesn't do any more land and sea packages really anymore, do they? So.
I think technically they have one,
But they're kind of just separate now, right?
but they're just kind of separate. Well, this is interesting. According to AI on my Google search, the Utopia is 236 gross tons.
So bigger.
So bigger.
Yes.
So Dennis brought up a good point in our chat about the fact that the Adventure uses green methanol as its fueling, whereas the other Disney ships either use the conventional diesel or LNG, which is the liquefied natural gas. And it does look like not a ton of ports in around us or in the US right now have expanded into the methanol. So that seems like that may be the larger limiting factor as for where this ship can also go.
That makes sense. And when we discussed the bookings opening on the 10th, it looks like Liz from our Patreon chat, indicated that it is going to start. Bookings will begin at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So we do have a time for that.
Which kind of puts it into Singapore's morning time. So that kind of makes sense, just like you're talking about with Australia. So, well, cool. Have you had anybody reach out and say they're excited about this ship yet, Christy?
Well, we have a few listeners who have been expressing interest, some clients. And so now it'll be a matter of waiting to see what pricing looks like for the cruises. And, you know, there will definitely be some people, I think, looking at it for the summer of 2026.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's excited. This is unique and new for Disney Cruise Line. Like, yes, we have the Destiny and the Treasure, but, you know, we have a footprint for that. We kind of know what to expect. Most of that has been revealed, or we know where things will go on that. But you could step on this ship right now and say, I have no idea where anything is.
Right.
And that's exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
This is the one ship that I could see really doing a back-to-back on. And just, yeah. I mean, I think,
there's so much to see.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, most people are probably, especially from the US, are probably going to do some sort of back-to-back. I would think if you're going to fly that far to go on it, you know, make it a 7-day at least, you know, 3 and a 4-day, put those two together. But yeah, I think it would be just amazing to be able to see all the different spaces and whatnot.
I wonder too what the language will be. So, like the regular announcements spoken.
Well, Singapore's overall, you know, English is pretty predominant in Singapore as far as the language there. So yeah, it will be interesting to see that, right?
Because it's their ship, right?
Yeah, not that everybody's going to be from Singapore that's going to be sailing on it.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be people from all over the region.
I'm sure we'll see, like, on some ships, you'll see multiple languages on announcements. I would still imagine English would be the most predominant.
Hey, Steve, here's a question you might know the answer to. Somebody in the chat's asking, any insight on the best airlines for flights to Singapore?
Oh, well, there's Singapore Airlines. Yeah, Singapore, Delta, United, all run trips to Singapore. Trying to think who else would. I'm not sure about American. American probably does, but Singapore has like several different options off the West Coast. And I'm trying to remember. I think they're part of United's. Program. So I can look that up. But see if you have miles with United, and it's a great airline. I'm not sure what the ticket prices would be, but the service is amazing. They're always like right up there with as far as service goes.
Just some more checks for a box to Singapore here. Well,
yeah, I think people are excited.
I think so too. Like I said, it's new and different and a lot to be excited about. And we still have a lot of time with more that could be announced because, again, we don't have deck plans. We don't know what's missing, where things are going. So we could definitely see more from this ship for sure before we, you know, ever even get to, well, I guess we'll see bookings here in about 2 months.
Yeah, and they did say, I wish I had the date, but late November, mid to late November, they would be announcing the itineraries. I mean, we know the itineraries sort of, but the exact itineraries and beginning pricing, stuff like that.
One thing to think about, Singapore is very hot there. Hot, humid, pretty much the whole year, and it kind of rains every afternoon, sort of like Florida in the summer. So, but just a beautiful city.
Here we go. November 14th will be details on pricing and sailing dates.
Cool.
So maybe we'll get deck plans then, because if you're booking, maybe. You know what we didn't talk about? The casino.
Because there is none.
There was no casino announcement.
Still shocking to me that they're going to put a ship in Asia without a casino, but good on them. And I think they're like, look, we're filling the ship with all this cool stuff. You don't need to go to a casino.
But I bet you that Betty will be shaking it up. So
Bingo will be popping.
Yeah, bingo will be somewhere on that ship, I bet. So
I wonder if they'll do anything else. Like, will there be something in
Blinko.
in one of the adult-only bars? Yeah,
Could
interesting.
be some like alternate options I could see for sure.
Or like throw a couple of machines in the corner or something, right? Where you're like throwing the coins in and tapping the penny slots for 50.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think that is as good a place as any to bring us out. Again, so much to talk about, so much to be excited about for a ship that feels very inaccessible to us for sure, unfortunately. But Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Where can our listeners follow you on all of your adventures?
Well, I just started an Instagram, DCL_adventures. You can follow. I try and post stuff. Can't talk. I try and post stuff there from our family stuff, just flying around. We followed a comet home last night, which is actually pretty cool.
That's so cool.
Put some different pictures from flying around and traveling around, and always fun to catch up with you guys too. So some pictures from that as well from Topolino's. Go check it out. Great restaurant.
And Christy, where can our listeners follow you?
You can find me all over the internet at Pack Your Pixie Dust. And Lake, where can our listeners find you?
You can find me mostly on YouTube and Instagram. Instagram is mouse.gen and YouTube is just mousegen for all of our fun Disney travel, cruising, and Run Disney content.
And
there is one more. Sorry, go ahead.
And the podcast can be found at DCL_podcast on Instagram and DCL Podcast on Facebook.
And there's one other place that you can always find Lake too, and that's in the front of the pack at a Run Disney race. Look for
Right? Corral A.
My homeland. It's where me and the peeps hang.
Love it.
Well, that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show. Once again, I want to thank you all so much for listening. If you want to help support the show, you can do so by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL podcast. You can also leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps get the show out there. But whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels. And see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.